The ancient part of the city of Acre stands a temple to Saint Angel. Luca Antonio Falcone, his birth name, was born on October 19, 1669, in a house not far from the current basilica. Born from parents of humble origin but rich in Christian virtues, he soon took the path of religious life and entered the order of Capuchin friars, with the name of Brother Angelo d'Acre. He died on October 30th, 1739. On December 18, 1825, Pope Leo XII proclaimed Father Angel of Acre blessed. On October 15, 2017, Pope Francis declared Blessed Angel saint for the many miracles attributed to him. The basilica, built and dedicated to the Immaculate Conception, houses the mortal remains of Blessed Angel. Construction on the temple began in 1893 by the will of Father Giacinto Osso from Belmonte Calabro to honor Blessed Angel, and was built entirely with the offerings and work of all citizens. It was completed in 1898. The sanctuary has a monocuspid vestigium facade, which is inserted in the lower orders of the two bell towers on the side, which form with the main facade a singular architectural body. The middle part is divided into three compartments with two orders of pilasters. In the bottom part there is a large arch portal. The bezel is closed by a series of 6 quadrangular archlar panels, which frame a fan structure with glass. Above there is a balcony window surmounted by a projecting cornice, supported by resonated shelves. These are flanked by 4 niches with white Carrara marble statues of St. Francis of Assisi, St. Anthony, Our Lady of Sorrows, and St. Angel. The prospects of the bell towers have 2 orders, the lower one with a structure of horizontal bands punctuated by grooves. Instead, those of the upper order are smooth. Here there are 2 oculuses closed off by a wooden rose window. Other 2 oculuses are also present on the facades of the bell towers, with a total height of 31 meters. The decoration of the facade is made by a series of projecting horizontal cornices with a notch ornamental pattern in the crowning cornice. The lower cornice creates 2 different bands, the lower one with rose window-shaped ornamental motifs and a bas-relief with the Franciscan coat of arms. The upper one is bordered by a cornice. On the main ledge, 2 quadrangular bell towers rise up with a double order. The fronts and the center parts are advanced relative to the lateral parts. In the forefronts of the upper order there are 4 semicircular arches delimited by 2 pilasters with Ionic capitals. On these rests an entablature where pinnacles rise, in the middle of which octagonal pyramidal cusps rise. In the lower part, the 2 towers are surrounded by 2 balustrades in white Carrara marble, small pillars, and pick beggar stone. At the back of the sanctuary, over 40 meters above the bell towers, stands the dome that has a total height of 35 meters. The 8 segments of the dome rest on the underlying octagonal drum, punctuated by pilasters which support the crowning entablature. Between one pilaster and the other, there are large windows surmounted by lowered arched gables with protruding cornices. On the pavilion stands a lantern with 4 arches, crowned by a cap holding a copper sphere on which an iron cross is inserted. Around the base of the lantern there is an iron protective railing. The sides of the sanctuary in smooth masonry have 6 semicircular windows in the upper part, with common stained glass windows supported by fan-shaped iron structures. The first 5 correspond to the temple hall. The last one opens onto the transept. Those corresponding to the hall on the right side are punctuated by buttresses on the perimeter walls, while the corresponding ones on the left side open inside 5 deep blind round arches. The pronaos, of modest width, architraved, the piers of the entrance arch, and the 2 composite columns lead into the main body of the sanctuary. On the right wall of the counter facade there is an epigraph engraved in marble. In a niche dug a little lower than this epigraph there is a tombstone of Father Giacinto from Belmonte. Another marble epigraph is present on the same wall, on the left side of the pronaos. The tombstones are surmounted by 2 oil paintings on canvas of St. Michael Archangel and St. Angel in prayer and contemplation of the Holy Trinity. Inserted in the right and left pillars there are 2 holy water fonts made out of Carrara marble. On the floor above the pronaos is the choir loft, which houses the monumental organ designed by the Ruffati of Paola Company. The choir stands are located in front of the main hall and are framed by the entrance arch, decorated with putty. The loft's parapet has a fox mosaic decoration arranged on 3 rectangular panels. The organ extends horizontally along the entire grandstand and has a tricuspid facade, divided into 3 sections. In these sections, the front pipes are symmetrically arranged on different levels that progressively grow in height from the outside towards the inside, all the way up to the middle of the organ to reach the same height as the cusps. The rods are made of different materials. Some are made of an alloy containing 50% tin. Others are of fine wood. The organ, commissioned by St. John in Fiore, was built in Cosenza by Edoardo Picardi and finally modified by the Ratelli firm. 9 meters high and 6 meters wide, with about 1,230 rods, 24 royal registers, 11 combinations, 2 keyboards, and a pedal board. The Chapel of St. Angel is located in the middle chapel on the left side. Designed by Matteini and decorated by Father Ugolino from Belluno, has become the main place of worship for the faithful. The urn, made of bronze and crystal, is embedded in the depth of the wall, 1 step higher than the rest of the pavement. Above it, there is a cruciform window, closed off by a stained glass depicting symbols of the Lord's Passion. On the mosaic background stands the inscription Sant'Angelo prega per noi, which means Saint Angel, pray for us, as well as various foliage and flying doves. The mosaics were made following the early Christian style of Ravenna, distinct from the Roman Baroque style of the rest of the church. The pulpit is located against the pillar between the 4th and the 5th chapel on the right. Made of polychrome marble, it is rectangular in shape and is supported by 2 Doric columns of white Carrara marble. The front parapet is decorated with polychrome panel featuring a roundel with the Our Lady of Sorrows carved in bas-relief. Finally, it's surmounted by a bronze canopy, and a plaque with an epigraphy on it is walled up below the structure. Originally, the transept was confined by a balustrade, with a linear base and the shape of a cimatium, supported by tapered columns which are incorporated at the base by a crown of flowers. The gray marble columns were intercepted with massive pillars. Today, the balustrade is gone, and there are 3 steps. In the middle of the presbytery stands the monumental central altar, which faces the main hall. Once the useless side altars had been eliminated, the baptismal font was moved to the right sector and the choir was moved to the left one. The amboos were placed beyond the triumphal arch on the 2nd step of the transept. The monumental central altar is placed in the center of the presbytery. Made with the marble from the demolished side altars, it is 1.10 meters high and it has a 3.30 meter long and 1.30 meter wide table. The table is supported by 4 Ionic volutes in black and white marble and 4 resonated corbels. Polychrome panels are inserted between the shelves and pillars. The central pillars have the image of Blessed Angel modeled in half relief. The high altar rises in the back line of the presbytery. Made out of polychrome marble and semi-precious stones, it is the work of good Neapolitan workshop. The altar is surmounted by a large architectural altarpiece consisting of 4 columns with an architrave and a pediment. The 2 external columns are further forward than the other 2, which are further back. On the Corinthian capitals runs an architrave with little angels and floral friezes, on which rests an elegant curvilinear pediment with projecting cornices supported by resonated corbels marked by fine rose windows. The altarpiece depicts the Blessed Virgin Immaculate. On the cornice of the entablature stands the barrel vault, which is divided into 5 transverse sections by lavish decorations of festoons with stripes of leaves. The 1st, 3rd, and 5th sections contain 3 squares shaped by mixtilinear cornices. The 2nd and 4th contain 5 squares but with smaller dimensions. The side paintings have putty studs. The central ones are supported by ornamental shelf motifs that overlap the frames. The panels depict episodes from the life of Blessed Angel, the Evangelist, some Sibyls, the 4 cardinal virtues, and the coat of arms of the Franciscan order, and of the Capuchin monastic of the province of Cosenza. Beyond the hall rise the pillars supporting the dome. Each pillar on the facades that face the main hall and the transept has 2 pilasters. Instead, the facades of the pillars facing the main arch have only 1 pilaster. On these pillars lay the major arches that support the large circular ring on which the bulk of the dome rests. The introdos of the arches are decorated with elegant festoons with flowers and fruit. On the extrados of the triumphal arch, there is a very rich putty ornamentation, with 2 festooned friezes between which 2 angels with outstretched wings stand. The dove of the Holy Spirit is depicted at the top of the arch, and a group of little angels, one of which comes out of the frame, with their feet on the cornice of the archivault, extending their hands toward the hall. Carved into the depth of the wall, there are 5 chapels along one side, and the same number along the other. All have a barrel vault and are raised 1 step above the main pavement. They are preceded by blind arches, whose movement is interspersed with pilasters with a pink stone base and composite capitals. The altars were built in polychrome marble in Naples, loyal to a design made by the architect Quercioli. The first chapel on the right is dedicated to Saint Joseph. The altar was offered by the De Simone family. The altarpiece depicts Saint Joseph with baby Jesus in his arms. The second chapel is consecrated to the Blessed Virgin of Lourdes, while originally to the crucifix. The altarpiece depicts Our Lady of Lourdes. The third chapel is dedicated to Saint Francis from Paula. The altar has a work of art on the altarpiece depicting the saint with his eyes turned to heaven and with an angel at his feet holding a raised shield with the motto Caritas in his hands. The next chapel is dedicated to the Sacred Heart of Mary, which is depicted in the altarpiece. The last chapel on the right side is consecrated to Saint Anthony of Padua. The altarpiece depicts Saint Anthony kneeling with the baby Jesus in his arms and angels at his feet. The first chapel on the left is consecrated to Our Lady of Suffrage. The altar features a painting depicting the Blessed Virgin with baby Jesus between 2 angels accompanying 2 purged souls to heaven. Below are the souls in purgatory rescued by 2 angels, while the third one in the center holds a chalice on which a host is held in his right hand. It is a copy of the work of Raffaello. The second chapel is dedicated to the Sacred Heart of Jesus and has a copy of Bottoni's Sacred Heart as an altarpiece. The third chapel is now consecrated to Saint Angel. The altar, demolished for renovations, is the only different one of the 10 of the original design. The fourth is dedicated to Our Lady of Pompeii. The altar has a beautiful painting painted in Rome. On the right side, there is a black marble plaque. The last chapel on the left side is consecrated to Saint Francis of Assisi. The altarpiece depicts Saint Francis in prayer at the foot of a cross with a brother beside him reading. All the paintings in small squares have frames in gilded wood. In the central part of the main altar, we find the tabernacle for the Holy Eucharist, with the shape of a small temple. On the sides of the facade, there are 4 pink coral columns with polychrome streaks, on which there are Ionic capitals that support the architrave on which the crowning pediment rests. The facade between the columns is marked by 2 orders with a horizontal cornice. The lower one has an arched opening closed off by a gilded bronze door. The upper one is covered with vertical stripes with polychrome marble. In the left sector of the transept, we find the choir. Made out of precious and seasoned wood, it has 3 orders of stalls. Before the choir, the art area was occupied by a marble altar, which was later transferred to the sacristy. In the surviving altarpiece today, we find a copy of the crucifix by Guido Reni. An amboon was added to adorn the transept, placed on the second of the 3 axis steps, in line with the external pilasters of the pillars. In the frontispiece, it is possible to observe a rectangular panel, the upper one with a white frieze and the lower one with a squaring. Between the 2 tapered columns, we find the upper panel in gray marble, and the columns of the lower part decorated with leaves, which have a Doric capital. On the opposite side, there is the new baptismal font. The apse is positioned in the middle of the rear lunette, where an eye window opens, closed later on. In the middle of the apse, there is a choir loft, in the lower part a wooden choir, simple in its structure. In the center of the choir, there is a badalone that is a lectern intended to hold the books of the choir office. In the lower part of the apse, behind the main altar, there is a sacristy, which is shaped like a rectangle. In the center, there is a chest of drawers made of selected and seasoned wood, which is embellished with 8 wooden columns modeled on the marble ones of the no longer existing balustrade. On the right wall, we find an oil painting on canvas depicting Saint Angel preaching with a prompter angel. On the opposite wall, there is another oil painting on canvas depicting Saint Angel in the act of delivering the simulacrum of the Our Lady of Sorrows to the people of Acre. In the sacristy, there are two oil paintings on canvas, Saint Dominic and Saint Nicholas of Bari. The dome is supported by the pillars that delimit the transept. Each of them has a pilaster with a pink stone base and a composite capital in putty. Between the pilasters of the transept, there are 4 niches which are not visible because paintings are put on top of them. On the pillars, there are 4 arches, whose introdos are decorated with flowers, fruits, and rosettes. On the arches, there is a circular ring with a trabeation which form 4 pendentifs together, in which the prophets Daniel, Isaiah, Ezekiel, Jeremiah are pictured. The trabeation rotates on the pendentifs, on which the tambour of the dome lays, and 8 pilasters with Ionic capitals rise, on which there is another trabeation with shelves, rosettes, ovules, and tentacles, and a projecting cornice. Between the pilasters, we find rectangular gabled windows. The hip cap of the dome is set on the terminal cornice. The transept has a floor made out of red Verona marble. In the part below the dome, it has a large circular ring band that runs all around the central altar. The red marble is the 3 steps that descend from the transept into the hall, underline the transition from the one sector to the another. On the background color, there are 5 white strips made up of quadrilaterals in red Numidian granite, punctuated by the perimeter pilasters on the church hall. A wide guide runs along the central axis. It consists of a series of squares alternately rammed into squares by a border of red Numidian granite and pink mirroring. At the center of this, there is a small square on the same granite as the border. On the right and on the left that goes from the pronaos to the transept, there are 2 bands formed by squares and triangles with the same mirroring and borders. The current floor has replaced the original floor made of layer of grey cement mortar. The entire decoration of the sanctuary belongs to Quercioli. Decorations made of plasters are angels on the extrados of the triumphal arch, flowers and fruit on the subarches of arches and major vaults, lacunaris with rosettes and of the introdos of the entrance arch, festoons and moldings of the vault of the hall, friezes of the parapet of the choir, lunette of the triumphal arch, capitals of pilasters and columns, ornament of the trabeation, icon of the altars. The project involved the pictorial decoration of the panels of the vault and the entrance arch with episodes from St. Angel's life and 21 statues in the niches that have been replaced with copies of large paintings, except for the 4 niches on the facade. On the facade, there are 4 statues that were commissioned to Ernesto Biondi, who sculpted them in white Carrara marble and went to Acre himself to take care of their locations. Along the sides of the door, there are the statues of Saint Angel on the right and the Our Lady of Sorrows on the left. And along the sides of the large window, there are the ones of Saint Anthony on the right and Saint Francis of Assisi on the left. The pictorial decorations of the vault and the lunette was assigned to Vincenzo Montefusco, who painted 10 episodes of Saint Angel's life in the 19 frames with mixilinear cornices of the vault. The Miracle of the Grapes, the Blessed Child in Prayer, Ecstasy, the Blessed in the pulpit, the Blessed kneeling at the foot of the crucifix which speaks to him, the Blessed in Glory, the Death of the Blessed, the Healing Miracle of Marianna Bernaudo, the Miracle of Resurrection of Francesco Sirimarco, the Miracle of Mendicino, the 4 Evangelists, the Sibyls and the Franciscan coat of arms, the Blessed Angel who gives the statue of the Later Sorrows to Acre's people, and the lunette of the entrance arch. The sanctuary was often neglected due to economic difficulties. 50 years after the consecration, there was a work of consolidation and restoration. The restoration of Montefusco's pictorial cycle was assigned to Emilio Iuso from Rose, who specializes in churches decoration. In some cases, he has limited himself to reviving color or marking the lines of the drawing. In others, he has cancelled, re-elaborated, redone, or replaced their paintings. Of Montefusco's original work remain the Miracle of Grapes, the Blessed Angel in Ecstasy, the Blessed Angel at the foot of the crucifix, which speaks to him, the Blessed Angel on the pulpit. There have been limited intervention on these. Part of Montefusco's work are the little Luca Antonio praying, the Blessed Angel in Glory. These two, redesigned with the new characters, the healing miracle of Marianna Bernardo and the death of Blessed Angel, instead of Montefusco's work entirely remain the Blessed Angel giving the Our Lady of Sorrows to Acri's people. This was entirely redesigned, the miracle of Mendicino. New paintings were also made. Christ among the Angels, rear window of the apse, Prophets of the Dome sails, reproductions by Michelangelo found in the Sistine Chapel. In the 1980s, some works on the paintings were entrusted to Guido Faita. The decoration of the room was redone by Elio Formosa.